Hey everyone, welcome back to part 3 where I'm joined by Pete Komolafe and we're going to be talking about crypto, its fatal future, Bitcoin bust, Bitcoin crash, what's going on. So starting with crypto, what's going on right now? It's taken a huge hit. It's a lot of attention's been taken off Bitcoin. If I go onto my Coinbase now, does not look great in the slightest. I'm not fussed long term, but what's going on right now, Pete?
Well, there's a lot going on at the minute with China and them cracking down on miners out in China there. So that has wiped off about 400 billion or so of the value of Bitcoin specifically in the last, I think, week or so. But it feels as though, and there's a lot of stuff that the Chinese are doing. They're discouraging their banks to supporting any cryptocurrencies. Many people may say that is because they're launching their own digital yuan. Well, they're still testing it out. I don't know where that is, but that's on the radar right now. But I think the whole reason why they're looking at cracking down specifically is because of the energy usage required to mine Bitcoin. So that takes them off their target for a green agenda. So that's had a huge hit. I think that combined with the fact that Bitcoin's been crypto's been crazy this year. It's been absolutely ridiculous. Yeah. And I think it's naturally just got into that place where people have got in and people are just taking profits and realizing, well, actually, we've done quite well here. It's not always going to be like this. Yeah. Let's get some money and take it off the table.
Do you think also where the hype around meme stock, that's taken a lot of attention off? I've seen where perhaps we've shifted from the digital going into the stock market again. Do you think that's what's happened as well?
Yeah. Actually, curiously, this is one thing I've certainly found through conversation with my community. You think that the money is circulating, but it's actually not. It's going from one place to another. Yeah. So, for example, I know people who cashed out Tesla to go and buy AMC. Yeah. And it's like, okay, you've just done that, but they will also cash out of AMC to go into Bitcoin or to want Shiba Inu or Dogecoin, for example. People do that. So I think there's an element of truth into that as well, that yeah, people are kind of like going from here to here, going where the attention is and just basically following the trends.
And it's funny, isn't it? Because as investors, like we were saying before and in part 2 and 1, is that you invest for the long term. Like you must have a clear vision. And like you say, it's just moving money from one thing and quickly jumping on that bandwagon and going from this. So it's all crazy, but is Bitcoin or whatever cryptocurrency you're interested in, should we still be cost averaging? Like, should we still be involved at the moment, or do we put on the brakes?
I think long term, yes. I mean, look, the whole rule and one of the key things about investing is you buy the dip, right? So if Bitcoin is at where it is right now, considering where it has been in the past, at all-time highs at $60,000, if it's down in a dip right now, it would make sense to buy now and cost average into that. The question is going to be, though, are you investing for the long term? Because a lot of people who invest in cryptos aren't necessarily looking long term. It's become a trading opportunity, an opportunity to make a lot of money very, very quickly if things go really, really well. So I think ultimately it will be around for a while. How it's going to integrate, I don't know. We'll probably come on to this a bit later on. How it's going to integrate into the wider picture, I still don't know. But I think as a long-term investment, you can't ignore the likes of Bitcoin and I think Ethereum. You just can't. You have to pay attention to those. Maybe Cardano as well. Yeah. You have to pay attention to Tizo, those kind of things you have to pay attention to. But yeah, pound cost averaging into it over the long term makes sense.
Yeah. So those are the three you just mentioned. So if anyone's interested, those are the three that I focus on. Mm-hmm. Bitcoin, Ethereum and Cardano. Those are the three that I focus on a cost averaging. So at the moment, for me personally, I do agree with you, buying the dip, but also I have put my brakes on certainly a little bit in order to allocate money elsewhere. So again, I suppose really just to re-emphasize is you're investing for your own reasons. So if that isn't performing that well and crypto isn't performing that well for me, I like to put it into other areas where I like my commodities and stuff like that. So, if you are someone who's thinking at the moment, I don't know what to do about crypto, just remember your personal circumstances and long term. Mm-hmm. So that's brilliant. So does crypto survive long term? So this is a question that comes up from all different angles. I suppose it's a few questions in one. Where does crypto sit in 10, 20 years time? Like, what could it look like?
It's a good question. I mean, the whole idea of crypto is having something that is decentralized. I think most people will be able to buy into that idea, particularly when you start thinking about the unbanked, right? Given access to a financial instrument to the unbanked. And there are millions and millions of people that fit in within that category. I think it has a place for that reason. I think where the real challenge for cryptocurrency still remains is how it actually plugs into the traditional monetary system. So, with cash, for example, it's impacted by inflation, but actually an easy counteraction to that is interest rates. Yeah. Well, that doesn't apply for cryptocurrency. So if you are going to get to a position where cryptocurrency becomes mainstream, how do you apply monetary policy to that? That's really where the big challenge is. It can't interface with the traditional system as it is. It would mean that the traditional system would have to change, and I can't see that happening, because that will mean pretty much rewriting economic policy, monetary policy. It's not going to happen. So this is where you're seeing now Bitcoin, the digital yuan, and countries talking about developing their own coin that we peg to their own currency. If that were to happen, you then question, okay, so what then happens to Bitcoin, Ethereum, Cardano? Now, they do have applications, and I think that from a technological point of view, they will help break frontiers anew, but whether it's in the current format, I don't know. I'm not sure, because the blockchain in itself is an amazing thing. The applications there are absolutely huge. I think we'll see a huge revolution in terms of how cryptocurrency will be used. Yes, there will still be some applications that we know now, but I think it has the ability to break open new frontiers that we don't even know about right now.
And what about, so there's some very valid points made, but one thing that has come up, especially with Coinbase and I think there's one other actually, where they're having to now almost partner with the government where taxes, if you have over, I think it's 5,000 euros.
Yeah.
Certainly Coinbase have announced that. I think there's one other.
There's Binance, most of them have
Binance, is it BlockFi? I believe is in conversations or giving certain exposure. So these to me are very early signs that it won't stay decentralized forever.
No, and this is the thing. Look at it this way. Can governments allow their citizens to use something that is completely outside of the regulated system? No, they cannot. Number one, they're not going to want to miss out on the taxation, which is why they're making the moves that they have done already. I mean, just think about the returns that people have enjoyed on Bitcoin this year. Yeah. You're telling me that Rishi doesn't want a piece of that? Of course he does, particularly with everything that we've been through. Of course he does. So I think what we are going to see is we're going to see governments lean on the companies that are providing services to access crypto, which is what they're doing right now, because that will be the one mechanism that they can use to have some form of regulation over how cryptocurrency is administered. I mean, one of the big things that has always been a conversation point with crypto has been money laundering. It's untraceable, right? Digital wallet. Okay, you probably find the person who owns the wallet. But just today, the Met Police, what they seized, 114 million pounds worth of Bitcoin. And these seizures have been happening for probably 2-3 years. There was one in the States for $3 billion in Bitcoin. So the fears around anti-money laundering, the application and the uses of Bitcoin, because it is stuff that isn't part of the central system. If you send money to the States, 10 grand, they have to go through certain steps, right? You can send anything anywhere in the world with Bitcoin for whatever purpose with no record of it. And just in terms of, we look back to 9/11, those rules were brought in because it didn't cost a lot of money to fly those two planes into the Twin Towers. It didn't. So anti-money laundering rules are there for a reason, but cryptocurrency being decentralized doesn't play with that. So you see a clash between technology, the traditional system, and basically rules and regulations that are designed to keep people safe, albeit inconvenient now that we have technology that provides this great opportunity.
And also, do you not think that, I mean, for anyone watching, you've got to remember, if it's digitalized, it's traceable. Like that's just my views. It can be decentralized, but has anyone else noticed, I don't know if you've noticed this, I get this all the time, especially when I open up my banking apps and other ones, is where a little pop-up on your phone will now say, allow this app to track
you,
for
yes.
better performance.
Yeah.
To me, that just says, let us monitor where you're moving money, let's get access. With your bank accounts now, it says, hook up your other banks, so for easier transactions monitoring and stuff like that. That's just a way of visualization for the central banks to go, okay, right, they're spending money, right, they're buying Bitcoin, how much, tracking. So just be very wary of where your money and what you actually allow access to on your phone. So going on to the hype of the retail investor, we spoke about it in part 2 of painting the tape. So I really believe that when it comes to crypto, there is such a huge part of painting the tape where institutions manipulate it and it drives the hype of the retail investor. At what stage do you think that will stop? Or will manipulation within the crypto sector always continue and we'll just be in this cycle of it spikes to a ridiculous amount, people believe that it's just opportunity, they get involved and can't see that it's institutions. What's your views around the amount of manipulation that goes on in crypto?
It's unregulated. This is a double-edged sword. You can't have the cookie and not want everything else that goes along with it, right? So if you think about the fact that what you just described there happens in stocks, you and I will trade it, pump the price up, retail investors get in, boom, we come out at profit at the top. They're doing that in a regulated environment. So think about what they can do when it's not regulated. Like seriously, they could do some serious damage because it's unregulated at the end of the day. And there's already evidence that there are hedge funds that are shorting cryptocurrencies. There is evidence of that already. So again, this comes back to regulation. How does it actually fit into regulation so those kind of things can be controlled or at least monitored properly? Will regulation happen? I don't know in what form. How quickly would it happen? God knows. I mean, I think from our industry is not known to move very swiftly with new technology. I think we're very, very traditional in that sense. And this is probably the attraction that investors have with things like Bitcoin. It's very, very new. It's fast paced. It's new. We need to catch up. We definitely need to catch up. The regulator needs to catch up. And we need to be better prepared for this kind of stuff. But will it stop? No, I don't think it will. I think it will carry on until there's some robust regulation around it.
That's the thing. People and institutions and the big players will make huge amounts of money from this, from being decentralised and non-regulated. But my view still stands as well, is that the central banks and the powers that be, they will never ever, in my view, and anyone I know, there's people really bullish on crypto. They're crypto through and through with the T-shirt. But the central banks will never let crypto take over. They will either adapt or they will just wipe it out. And previous guest Andrew Craig put it very bluntly, they have used military force before across the globe that if something gets out of hand, they will just wipe out the owner. The owner of Bitcoin, where is he? Maybe did he foresee that he needs to be under a rock somewhere because one day actually if it gets too big, he's a goner? I don't know. It's all speculation. But I just believe that central banks will never let it take over.
They won't. I mean, they can't allow it to take over because countries are built on monetary policy. Bitcoin does not support that. It can't be controlled. It can't be regulated. It can't be. It's a very, very fine balancing act trying to get monetary policy right, particularly with COVID. We've spent so much money, had to borrow so much money. We've got increased inflation right now. So how are you going to bring everything into kilter? Okay, we don't want to do interest rates just yet because we think the economy is going to recover because we're not fully open just yet. It's a fine balancing act. If you have something that you can't apply those levers to, how do you control the economy? And it's not just the economy, it's everyday life. It's mortgage rates, it's what car you drive, whether you can afford that, it's jobs, it's banks, it's everything. So if you can't control those things and pull those levers because they're under your purview, you'll be wiped out.
Yeah. And we're going to come on to the last couple of points, is that crypto technically isn't even asset backed.
Yeah.
So when you're actually investing into it and you're like, I've got my money in crypto, I mean, I'll even sit there sometimes and go, what's it actually backed by?
Yeah, what's the value
when I'm buying gold, I know that I can liquidate that gold into yen, euros, pounds, dollars it's there. You know, I could put that in a little shoebox, put it in, you know, and walk with it, and trade and buy a cow and a chicken. Crypto's not actually asset backed, so that's something you also, you know, just bear in mind. At the moment, it's not asset backed, but sort of coming to a close there, and actually I'm going to come on to a bit of a conspiracy at the end. I'm going to throw it out there for you to do your own research. It's something I heard, and I'm interested to get your 30-second take on this. Is what are you? Where are your main focus? Is it those 3 cryptos that you mentioned earlier?
Those main 3. So Bitcoin, Ethereum, Cardano. Those are the 3 really that I think. I think Bitcoin does have that attraction. There'll only ever be 21 million of them. Yeah. So in terms of that finite resource store value, that absolutely works. Ethereum, it's that lubrication for that new kind, that internet 0.3 or version 3 or whatever it is that they're calling, they dub it now. It is that lubrication. It makes it all work. Same thing with Cardano. The kind of application is exactly the same. So I focus on those 3.
Amazing, and they're exactly the same 3. Now, just to finish as we close part 3, it's been amazing. I've loved having you on, Pete, and dived into some huge topics there, and hopefully there's so much value. I heard maybe a conspiracy, I don't know, but I want to see if you heard this, is that some time ago, Colonel Gaddafi was putting some form of a digital currency together, and it was painted over, he was wiped out to do with terrorism, but actually he was running a very sound, organised, free, fair opportunity, and perhaps it was threatening other big institutions, China, the US.
So basically, so he was basically creating a currency that would basically mean that the US dollar is kind of the global economy, global currency. It would replace the US dollar. And the conspiracy is that the Americans looked at it and thought, no, we can't have that, because automatically that devalues the dollar. They can't have that happen. And that's, there was a lot of stuff that he was working on, and that was years and years and years ago, really. So
the moral of bringing that up is just there's always an agenda. There's always a bigger picture, so you actually need to take those into consideration when investing. Really look long term. That was the whole point of this. Pete, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on my channel. Awesome, and thank you for everyone for watching and joining. Until the next time, we'll see you all very soon.